In this unit, you're going to have to output information to a file that's organized in very carefully constructed ways. I want it to look like a very well-controlled report about information that you are pulling from the web. So you're going to be scraping from the web, processing the strings in a customized way, and then outputting it to files for persistent storage. And in this section, this lesson, I want to go over a little bit of review and a few new ideas about how we are able to actually process strings and understand how to make sense of that type of information in Java. So the first thing I want to go over is this idea of stripping white space. And so to do all this work in this section, actually I'm going to create a string. I'm going to call this text. I'm just going to put in, this is my text with some white space around it. And this is the string that we're working with. So we have a method in Java where I can take my text and I can strip it. So what is this going to do? Well, let's do a printout of my text and see what happens to it. And I'm going to see, once it gets up and running, going slow for some reason, this is my text. Nothing has changed. There's still space in front and space afterwards. And what this is supposed to do is actually remove all this blank space. So what's going on here? Well, there's something we need to know, that strings are something called immutable. Mutable? I think it's an A, but I might be wrong. Immutable. Mutable? I'm doubting myself now. I think it's A. Anyway, that means that they cannot be changed directly. That is not allowed. So what I need to do is assign the information to a variable. Now, I could set my text to be equal to the stripped down text. And now when I run this, the text has changed. What's happening here? Well, this variable is just a reference to information. And so what I'm saying is I want to replace the information this is referencing with the stripped down version, replacing the old reference. So now this information is technically lost, but I'm allowed to do this, and I'll be doing this a bunch in this section. You could also create a new variable, string, text2 if you wanted to. I'm just going to reference and overwrite the same one, but I need to overwrite it. Just trying to directly change it is not allowed. I have to save it to a new variable. That's a really important thing to remember about strings, this immutability. Okay, so what does stripping do? Well, there you go. It removed the space in front and after it. It can be really useful because sometimes from web pages, you'll have extra useless information surrounding stuff that you just want to get rid of to make everything aligned properly and look the best that it can. All right, so there is some stripping of white space. Let's go to our second topic, which is replacing certain content in a string. So what am I talking about here? Well, my text, I'm actually able to replace information inside of this text. For example, if I think of the word this, and I write in the second parameter here, what should happen is my information is replaced, but it isn't yet. I'm trying to catch you off guard here. Remember, we can't directly change it no matter what we're trying to do. We have to always reassign it to a variable because strings are immutable. Now, I should see that the this above is replaced by here because I've replaced the content. Now, what happens if I do something like this? This is my text, this is the end. I now have the word this twice. And if I run this, what's going to happen? Here is my text, here is the end. It is now replaced in every single position. What would happen if we wanted to only replace it once? The answer is you can't exactly in this format. There's another class you can use called string utils you could import to do this, or you can create the logic yourself. But generally speaking, when we replace, we're replacing everything throughout it. Otherwise, we might as well just dive in and manually replace the content. So really, replace is going to just replace all of the situations with that you come across. This, here, it replaces the content kind of directly. And so, yeah, we'll just have to kind of get used to that. And you have to create some logic yourself if you need a different solution, which is probably not very likely. Okay, so now we've been able to replace information. Actually, let's let this all happen. Let's keep on these changes compiling and adding up. So I've stripped it and I've also replaced this with here. Here is my text. Here is the end. Very cool, very cool. Now, let's try to break long strings into subsections. And I think we did this in the last unit, if I recall. But what I can do is I can split my text and around some kind of delimiter. So what this means is, well, if I don't put anything inside of this, then my delimiter is going to be a white space. What if I set this text, and actually I need to set this because it's going to split it into an array. I need a string array and my words to equal the splitting of this text here. And so let's just fix this error by just thinking about this. Oh, and that's right. I'm thinking about Python, sorry, for a second here, where the split comes with its own internal delimiter check. I have to actually provide those characters in here. So if I actually want to split it up into the different words, then I need to provide the space to split it up from one word to another. And I can also do this with other types of delimiters. I can do it with like a new line character. I can do it with punctuation of different types. But I'm able to split this up into different subsections of information. And so what happens if I want to iterate over this? Well, let's take a look here. I'm going to go for string word in my words list. And let's just print out the one word at a time and see what it is that pops out in this list here. Here's my text, ... Here was the end. Split one entry at a time by the space here. What if I made this ... Well, when I print this out, I will have the text split for my words, and here's my text. This is my text, this is the end, and oh, what is it doing in this processing here? Let's see. Ah, that's right. We have a different system of processing strings that kind of goes on with the splitting. It's called regex. I think I talked about it in this last section too. We have to be careful about the symbols that we input for the splitting because there's some unique ways we have to do it. So if you're really keen on using some of our punctuation type symbols for your splitting, then you're gonna have to do a little bit of digging or ask me for some help in how to work with the regex stuff. I'm not gonna cover it in this tutorial right now. Splitting along white space or new lines is generally good enough for what we want to do. So I'm going to leave it at that for now, just so we don't overcomplicate our lives. But there's breaking things down into subsections. And let's just forge on ahead to the next topic here, where we're going to think about how we manage case. So case management. To make our reports just look precisely great. What I can do with my text is I can set all my information in it to uppercase if I want to. And so in here, if I just set my text to text uppercase, everything is being shouted. And now what I can do is set my text back to lowercase to return it to its original form, all lowercase. And this to show you that lowercase is indeed working properly. Let's just set a couple things to capitalized in here. So the original string is capitalized and now everything is lower. Test this out yourself, make sure it works so that you have control over case management. Might be useful sometimes. If you want to change specific letters, you're going to have to access them individually and then run the two uppercase or two lowercase methods on the subsections. So a little bit more work involved in some of that stuff. We can also check if content is in a string by checking if our text contains a character sequence, which is just kind of a specialized way of saying a string. So let's see if our text contains the word this. And what we're going to do is let's print out the result of this call. Does the text contain this? And it says that it does. Why does it say it contains this when it's uppercase in this case? Well, there is a lowercase one here. I've also lowercase the whole thing. What happens if I make both of these uppercase and I don't make it lowercase and I run the contains? We'll see that it says false. So this contains is case sensitive, something to be aware of. That's why doing something like a to lowercase call before you check if it contains something is really useful, because now there won't be any case sensitivity. So we managed to actually check the contents and not just the syntax. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, moving on. We can also slice our strings. And what this means, well, in other words, is called what we call a substring. Get a subsection of the string. And so what we're going to do here is run the method called substring. And we have two options here, a beginning index or a beginning and an ending index. The one that's just the beginning index, whatever number we put in tells us the slot in the string that we want to start at and then go all the way to the end. So I'm going to go, well, I'm just going to get a substring starting from the beginning. And in this case, oh, I want to comment this out for now. I see that the whole text is printed. But what if I start from position 5? Now I should see that it just says is my text. This is my text. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entries in. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We start at the 5th element, is my text. The 4th element should have some white space in front because it actually pulls that white space character with it. So this goes from 4 to the end, but what if I wanted to have a definitive ending point at 10? What does this look like? Blank is my. Let's make sense of what this 10 is meaning. Well, in this string, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is where I'm starting. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 10th element is a space. Why is there not a space down here? This is because our second index is exclusive, meaning it does not include it. It means stop before here, basically. A little bit confusing, but the reason why is to think about the length of any array of information. The last element is always 1 less than it. So if we put the last element, we want the final thing it actually accesses to be the last element of it. What if I put something that's way too long? There's definitely not that many things in it. I'm going to crash my program. So we got to be careful about substringing, that we don't accidentally go out of bounds inside of this. If you ever want to go to the end of it, just simply don't put a second index in there. Okay, it's just asking for trouble. So we're able to substring this. Let's just substring it. I don't know. I think it looks like maybe the 16th to the end should be pretty close to my dots. Look at that. I eyeballed it exactly. I'm so good. Every so often, at least. All right. Final thing for now. So we have this is the end. It's the only thing that we see now. And we can actually convert, and this is going to be a bit of a separate thing, convert or cast our strings to other types of data, which you might find useful from time to time. So we're going to leave this original text behind for now. And what I'm going to do is, well, actually, I can keep this here because what I'm going to do is actually just set a new value for text. And I'm going to make it the number 7. And right now, if I print this out, I've overwritten all the previous stuff that is held in text information. So once this actually decides to work, I should see 7 printed out. I'm actually able to have a num cast from this. How do I do this? Can I like integer cast my text? No, that's not going to work. I have a special class called the integer class that has a bunch of functionality that you can perform on integers. And one of these pieces of functionality is something called the parse int. And it accepts a string. I'm going to accept the text string. And I'm going to now, instead of printing out this text, print out the num that I cast it to. And the num is 7, except it's in it used to be a string, and now it's a number. Now be wary. What happens if I have an extra space here? It crashes. I can't have any extra information, any letters or other text. It has to just be that single number. So we have to kind of prepare our string information in advance if we want to use this type of parsing properly. I can also do the same thing technically with doubles. Right now it's not going to work. This is an integer, but I also have the same functionality to parse a double with our double type data. And if I do this, it runs. This is now a double type information. So you might be trying to pull out information from websites when you're scraping them that you want to actually be considered in your program as being numbers, not just strings. And here's the strategy you can use to do that casting and converting. All right, so there's a bunch of strategies. You might not use all of them in this section, but now you have the capacity to manipulate and work with strings in a whole bunch of new ways. And it should help you in being able to work with the data that you, well, scrape from the websites. See you in the next one.